Hi, Robin.
Hello, Hemi or Hemdeep.
It's okay. I think it's
Sorry.
there have been moments where Michael's done training where he's gone, and you've probably spoken to our co-founder Hemi, and they're like, "Hemi,
Really?
that's isn't that an engine? What do you mean?" And then he corrects himself. No, 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 Hemdeep. Yes, Hemdeep. Okay, so it's
I
okay.
can't help it.
It's all good.
The routine is it's still there, you know.
It's all good. We're five
Anyway,
episodes in, and we thought that we would touch base with you and sort of give you what it was like to record them, what it was like to speak to these amazing people, and just give you a glimpse of some of the things that you may have missed if you had not listened to all of our previous podcasts. My name is Hemdeep Patel. I'm from CADWorks 3D, Creative CADWorks, and ResinWorks 3D. My co-host, Robin.
yeah, that's me. So I'm Robin. Been with the company going on. Actually, no, it's August now. So
Around
that's three
four.
and a half, 3 and 3/4
Yeah, something like that.
years with the marketing team. I do a lot of the technical writing. I've been reading a lot of the papers that we put on our website. Little plug in, if you want to read some academic papers, there's a bunch of them on our website. Um, so I go through a lot of those. So we actually know a little bit what we're talking about whenever we make, our social media posts and everything.
And I think Robin has become gone from a marketing person to a lot of different hats. She does a lot of our social media posts in general, digital, and then now she's co-hosting podcasts. She is broadening her skill set, so we have been very happy to watch this person improve their skills in a wide variety of ways. And then the person who's also putting this all together, Mary Francis, who
Mm-hmm.
came in as a 3D printing specialist, is now dabbled in on the editing side of a podcast, and she's reached out to a lot of our guests and tried to help them on
Yeah.
board and get a lot of the back work stuff done. So we've got a really interesting team, and I think the podcast has brought out some amazing skills from everyone on our side. So we've been very happy with the experience so far.
Yeah, you wouldn't have never caught me doing a podcast until this.
Yeah,
It's probably the only podcast I'll do. But I'm proud of it.
like ever since we started this, I've been listening to all the old podcasts I used to listen to, and now I have a much more greater appreciation of just the amount of work that goes on
Mm,
behind the scenes to make it absolutely seamless. And I think in the podcast that we started putting together here, we went through all the growing pains that I'm sure a lot of the other podcasters have gone through, and I think we came out better for it on the other side. We certainly spoke to some amazing guests that I
oh yeah.
had wanted to have a one-on-one chat with for such a long time, and I think we really were successful with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even like I said, I read a lot of the academic papers, but it's so different actually getting to speak to them firsthand, and you learn so much more.
Yeah,
And especially like with some of the visuals that these guys give us,
for sure.
it's amazing. Yeah.
Like in fact, the one that we did with Iwan from and Philippe from Cambridge, that one was the one. That was the first group of people I got a chance to chat with when I had gone to see them, and I remember at that time just being amazed at what we had built as a tool set and what they were doing on their side when it came to cochlear implants. And at that time, I remember I had I sat around with them. I think it was probably around 4 or 5 hours, and I just sat there amazed at the amount of work that they did, the type of work that they were doing, and then sort of the out of the box thinking. And I think that was one big, string that sort of connected all of our guests, was that a lot of them took our platform and then the out of the box thinking that they had to do, because a
Mm.
lot of them were solutions that have not been developed, never been invented. there were ideas that were just sort of sitting and did not have a place to actually mature and become something tangible, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And they all kind of really use it in different ways. So some people are making physical devices, and that's kind of what we show on our website, right?
Yeah.
Proper finished devices. But then other people are using it more for, like it's more about, oh, I need to figure out a certain process, and there's a specific tool I can make with 3D printing. It's not necessarily in the final device, but it still helps them out in big ways and helps them like hone in on the right methodologies or techniques.
Yeah, like I think when we did Ivan and Philippe's, I think that one was a real, we really got a good sense, especially with that 1 hour conversation of exactly what they were looking in terms of big picture. Even when we did Jack
Mm-hmm.
Koch, like that was, I mean, the stuff in terms of germplasm and all of the work that they're doing down at Louisiana State and the Aquatic Center, like some amazing, amazing work that they were doing there.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of cochlear models, did you like fun little fact? I didn't know, but the word cochlea means Greek and means snail in Greek,
Oh,
which makes sense now because then you have that little spirally channel which looks like a snail's shell.
look at that! And you thought that you were just
Mm.
tuning in to listen us to us recap. We were showing our growth as well. On top of that, we're now specialists in Greek as well.
Yeah, right. Because I was trying to figure out because I want to talk a bit more actually about the cochlear model
Yeah,
and like how they essentially created a closed spiral channel, and it's like a helix. It goes downwards, right? And that's a very difficult thing to make unless you have 3D printing. And I was like, how would I call that spiral channel? And I thought of snail, so I literally just like Googled it.
yeah.
I was like, is the cochlea does the cochlea look like a snail shell? And then that's when that little fun fact came up. It's like, oh, actually, cochlea means snail in Greek. So I'm like, I'm using that.
In fact, you know what? They when I was at Cambridge, they showed me the stage that they used to measure the insertion force, and
Mm,
it's such an amazing jig. It's an actual stationary jig that has a series of sensors, and the probe slides in, and every time it nudges or applies any force in the X, Y, or Z direction, it
mm-hmm.
records it. And so
This
they
is
would
like the probe goes into the
the
3D
cochlear.
printed part in the
Yeah,
model.
exactly.
Ah,
Yeah, and so
cool.
then they now know and they needed the device to be fully transparent so that they can watch it on the
Yeah.
outside, and then they're able to identify where within the cochlea they're able to where the exertion forces are or the insertion
Mm-hmm.
forces are, and then sort of modify their their strategy of how they then insert the implants in there
Yeah.
based on that. So like fantastic, amazing work that I know I was very excited by
When
listening
did
to.
you go and see them actually? What year was that?
It was 2022, I think, in the early part of
Mm.
2022, or was it 2023? One of those 2 years. I had a wedding to go to in the UK, and I
Oh,
remember I
okay.
took
Yeah.
out a full day, left central London, and took a train up there, like Cambridge. If no one had, if you've never not gone to Cambridge, it is, and it's on a bucket list. It's well worth to be on a bucket list. That place is
Mm.
absolutely amazing. You're
Nice.
walking in the footsteps of some of the most the greatest historical minds, scientific minds to ever walk in that area. So yeah, it was a place
Wow.
to
High
go.
praises.
Very high praise, yes, for sure, for sure, for sure. So who should we? I then brought up Jack. Jack was another interesting, very very interesting person, and I think he connected. He was someone who connected his youth to a love of aquatic life and the
Yeah.
water into a full-on, a calling of helping endangered species to preserve aquatic life in all of its form and developing a strategy for everyone else to also participate in that.
Yeah, it's like when you have a childhood dream, but then most people, like my childhood dream was to be a tiger breeder. That obviously never happened, but for him, like going to the beach with his net and like getting all these different little fishes and everything, he still kind of stayed on that path,
For sure.
throughout the years, and that's such a rare thing. But when we talk to him, you can really hear like his passion and like his love for what he's doing. So that was like a really nice thing to come across.
And I think because he was also a natural born tinkerer, I think you got
Yeah.
that sense of he had identified a problem, and then it was just a matter of going out there and just finding solutions, even if they were not direct solutions. I think he's got a was he the was it Jack who had a full studio that had
Yeah.
how many,
All the
30 of
printers.
all the available printers,
Yeah.
and he was working with any and all available platforms in order to find and build tools for him to develop a germplasm repository at that point.
Yeah, like the way he called himself, he's not a biotechnologist, he's a technobiologist.
Yes.
So the machinery, like the printers and all the other things he works with, like that is really like his specialty.
Yeah.
And then he employs that to help him like create like the cryopreservation kits and all these other devices that he uses when for like the sperm cell counting and the egg mass preparation.
Yeah.
He knows about he knows about 3D printers. He knows his thing.
Yeah. I think when he and his team had reached out to us, I think he knew exactly what he wanted, and he knew
Yeah.
what he had, what the gaps were in what he had, and he really focused on exactly what he needed. And yeah, I was really happy that we were able to find a solution for the gaps that he found in his research and technology at that point.
And I say he has like a very big picture about how 3D printing is used because like he uses the term open hardware.
Yeah,
I think it was where it's more about okay, he's created a device, let's say the sperm counting
yeah,
chamber. And yes, it works for the species that he uses, he researches. So that's the aplysia, the sea slugs.
yeah,
But then he makes it so that it's standardized enough where now other researchers
exactly.
can employ it for their own specific species, and then so he like really kind of focuses, or the AGGRC also, they want to be able to share the digital files, and anyone else, any other researcher who has their own 3D printer can just take that file, adjust it if they need to
Yeah.
for their specific conditions for their eggs or sperms, whatever. And then, yeah, they use it. So, like,
I think you can transport it. You can either transport the actual, obviously, the hardware, or you can transport the digital file for someone else
yeah.
across the world to make it, to
Mm-hmm.
develop it, and then develop it for their specific needs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Mm.
And then if you you take that to the next team that we talked to was Alex from McGill, and then he too again a completely mycelium. I would have never thought of fungi and packaging to ever be part and parcel of the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
he and his team have done some amazing work on that as well.
And Alex is kind of, instead of like what I was talking about before, where they use 3D printing more so to learn
Yeah,
about the best techniques for something. I think that's really where 3D printing came into play for Alex. Because I don't know how well you remember their setup for how they found out the optimal size of mycelium, where it's like this size is best for
yes,
growth, right?
yeah,
And then he was saying that they were testing different sizes, like 5 millimeters, 2 millimeters, etc., etc. But when it came to like 1 millimeter fragments of mycelium, they don't have the biopsy punch where they're able to get it.
yes,
And so that's where they used 3D printing, where they made a specific device where they could put a little bit of mycelium in, and it would grow through these channels.
Yeah.
And the moment it starts going through the channels, chop it up, and then now that's their little fragment that they can test, and they can see how they can monitor how it grows. And then, but then when you go like when they got further on in the research, they no longer needed 3D printing. So it's kind of like it shows that again, 3D printing is not the be all end all when you necessarily do a research project, but it doesn't mean it's not a useful tool.
Yeah, and I think of the three that we pointed out, plus all the other researchers whenever we've spoken to them, I think it's actually just sort of getting the ball rolling on their idea,
Yeah.
whether it's identifying, could this solution actually work, and then once they get that going, then they're off, and their research itself has legs of its own to sort of go onward. The mycelium, you're right. He did the punch. The hole punch was the one of the critical parts where he
Yeah.
was not able to test it until that was in place, and then once it was in place, then he was able to validate his original hypothesis, and then move forward from there. And
Mm-hmm.
then we had two of the more interesting conversations that we had. One was with Adam and Greg. They're from BYU, and they like if like Greg I had seen on the TED Talk. I think his TED Talk came out in 2018, I think it was. And I remember at that time, the company, our company, was at its infancy, but we had ideas of what we thought we would be able to do. And then I see this TED Talk from Greg, and I was just like, that's what I want to do. Like what he's talking about in terms of being able to do negative space printing, being able to do very high resolution printing with clear focuses and sort of deliverables for microfluidics or microprinting in general. Those were the things that we'd sort of earmarked as what we had wanted to do. And I
Mm.
remember when seeing that, that laid down a much more firmer foundation for the company. We were really sort of like, okay, yeah, these
We
are the
have
things that
something
we
here.
think we can do. And we had a lot of the not the solutions in base, but we had a lot of the ideas already sort of fermenting on our side. We had, the material that eventually got released earlier this year that we're going to talk about. Cyto-Clear
Mm.
was almost like the ideas of exactly what that would look like were already in place for us because we had another material that was available. The printer itself, we had a very good understanding of what we needed to do to get it to what we wanted, and then the conversation we had with them just that just blew it even further. Like they almost made our goals and aspirations almost insignificant by what they
Oh
were
yeah.
wanting to do beyond that. I was like,
They're like levels ahead of
I was like, wow, okay, I feel this small now with my with whatever I'm doing, and these guys have really taken things that we thought were possible to a level that we're like, how do you do this? How like where like it does these it's when you speak to people like this is when you see where innovation is sort of done not by small incremental steps, but it's like leaps, like
Mm.
big giant step forward. And Greg and Adam really showed that at least for me during that conversation, that they were really taking large strides forward as opposed to small incremental sort of steps.
Yeah, they have like a very clear idea of what 3D printing needs to do,
Yeah.
and then they try to like, okay, how do we get there? We need to make this come into
Yeah.
fruition, and then they go for it.
And even the most I remember when Greg and Adam were talking about you know the resin itself inherently has gas, and how do you degas material before printing. I was like, I would have never thought of not needing to degas the resin that I pour into a printer, and
Mm-hmm.
then the entire sort of thought process and the science and the physics behind it of why you want to, then you're like, aha. And then most of us would just sort of say, wow, that would be interesting if you could. And then they take it that big leap forward and they just sort of do it. And they say, this is how you do it. It's like, wow,
Let's
this is
3D print in a vacuum
yeah,
chamber.
exactly right. So it's just like, oh my god. So that
Hmm.
was for me, that was one of that was a very high sort of a mind altering moment of the conversations that we've had.
And then you mentioned the new material.
Yes, the new material,
Mm.
Cyto-Clear. Cyto-Clear was that material has been on a, it was off the shelf, on the shelf. It was on a very high shelf. We thought
For
we
how
almost
long was that on and
it
off the
was
shelf?
I think it was better part of 5 years. We hated it. There was a time period we really hated the material. It just would not work the way that we thought it would work. It kept on a lot of stop starts, even during this time when we were validating it with Veronica and her team. We had spent 1 year validating the precursor to Cyto-Clear, and it just failed miserably. Everything
Mm.
about it, we just there was it hiccups everywhere. The material itself wasn't as biocompatible as we thought that it could have been. There were optical. It was optical transparent, but it not as good as not really as good as what we finally got it out to. Even on the on the yellowing, where a lot of materials, in the biocompatible are usually have a very strong or a light yellow to it, and that's
Mm.
what our previous material was doing, and like this is just not working, and we hated it. And then lo and behold, we had Cyto-Clear is done, and we get a chance to talk to Veronica and Noah, who sort of put in a ton of work in order to
Validate the
validate what we've
material.
got,
Yeah.
validate it. They presented it, or Noah's presented it at the craft fair, and then there's a lot of additional work that's now being done with it. So I'm sure that we'll have more updates in regards to Cyto-Clear there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 5 podcasts that we've done, and it has been fantastic.
Well, five
Uh,
podcasts, 3 episodes each.
yes, exactly. So that's a lot of information gathering, a lot of interesting information that's been given by the researchers
Mm-hmm.
and those that are passionate about the field of study that they're in. If you've not caught any of this, I would suggest you go on
Check it
to any
out.
of your streaming platforms and check it out.
Mm-hmm.
This month's podcast will be can be seen online on YouTube. We will be speaking to Chen Li, another student from McGill, and his work focuses on finding environmental factors that impact epithelial cell differentiation.
Mm-hmm. So when we had that conversation with him, there were a lot of really amazing diagrams that really give you a clear picture. So we want to make sure that whoever listens to this content also gets the visual aids to go through it, and that's why we're going through YouTube this time round, just so everyone watching fully understands how the conversation is, and they get a good idea of like what is the devices that he 3D printed do, how they work, all the good stuff.
And a lot of work on 3D organoids. So, really, you have to tune in.
Yeah.
So I think this probably winds down our brief sort of intermission of podcast, and I hope you guys have had fun or you found it interesting the podcast that we have already recorded, and I hope you'll go back and listen to those. I hope you'll subscribe. You will, become a regular listener as we drop more video and audio content for you guys. Till then, we'll see you later. This is Hemdeep and
Robin
from Big Ideas at
at
Microscale.
Microscale.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.